All right, so salute omnes. Welcome to section 38 of the Fabulae Faciles. This is the 10th labor of Heracles, the oxen or the cattle of Geryon. I usually call it the cattle of Geryon. And Geryon is a giant who has three bodies. He also has a giant shepherd who works for him named Eurytion, and Eurytion has a dog who is two-headed. He is the brother of Cerberus, the three-headed dog of the underworld. So there's a whole bunch of big monstrous people, the giant Eurytion, the giant two-headed dog, and then, of course, Geryon himself, the triple-bodied giant king of Erythea, the Red Land, as it's called. Okay, so basically, the cattle of Geryon are cattle of the sun god. We talked about the horses of the sun god in the last little segment. So cattle of the sun god are sacred and special, and you see a lot of references to them in Greek mythology. Odysseus's men eat some of the cattle of the sun god, and then they end up all dead because of it, because they weren't supposed to be eating him. So here, the cattle are held by this Geryon character, who is the son of Chrysaor, golden sword giant, who came out of the neck of Medusa when Perseus chopped off her head, right? Along with Pegasus, who also came out of Medusa's neck. Okay, so here we go. The story of Geryon and his cattle, which Hercules is sent to get. Tum vero missus est Hercules. But then Hercules was sent ad insulam Ereteam, to the island of Erythea, ut boes Geryonus arceseret, in order that he might fetch the cattle of Geryon. Res erat summae difficultatis, the matter was of the highest difficulty. Summae difficultatis is our genitive of description. Quod boes a quodam Eurytione et a cane bicipite custodiae bantur, because the oxen or the cattle, the cows, we could even call them the boes, were being guarded, custodia bantur, that's imperfect indicative, by a certain Eurytion, that's the giant shepherd, or I guess he would be a cowherd here, et a cane bicipite, and by a two-headed dog. Ipse autem, Geryon, speciem horribilem praebebat. Moreover, Geryon himself displayed a horrible appearance. Tria enim corpora interse conjuncta habebat, for he had three bodies joined among themselves. Now, we would say in English something like joined to each other, or joined with one another, or something like that. Maybe even just joined together. But Latin, because it doesn't have a reciprocal pronoun, and in other words, a word that means each other or one another, they have to do the inter se thing, joined among themselves. Hercules tamen, Hercules nevertheless, et si intelligebat, even if he understood, quantum periculum est, how much of a danger it was, esset here is an imperfect subjunctive. In an indirect question, the quantum through esset, all of that is indirect question. Negotium suscapit, undertook the task or the job. So he's like, sure, I'll go do that. This is pretty much what he does anytime Eurystheus proposes a task, right? Yeah, okay, no problem. Eurystheus has got to imagine, there's no way I could ever do that. But every time it's like, sure, I'll do it. Ac postquam, and after per multas terras iter fecit, he made a journey through many lands. Ad eam partem Libyae pervenit, he arrived at that part of Libya is basically what we would call North Africa for the Greeks and the Romans. At that part of North Africa, quae Europae proxima est, which is near to Europe. Now, what we mean here is what we would call the Strait of Gibraltar, where part of Morocco comes very close to the southern coast of Spain. Ibi in utroque litere, there on each shore freti of the strait, quod Europam a Libya divided, which divides Europe from Africa, columnas constituit, he established or set up columns, quae postea Hercules columnae appellabantur, which afterwards were called the columns of Hercules, or as we probably in English call them, the pillars of Hercules. If you've never heard that phrase, the pillars of Hercules, this is a reference to the Strait of Gibraltar, which again is the narrow body of water between Spain and Morocco there, where the land masses reach out and almost close off the Mediterranean Sea, right? And you see, if you go to Morocco or you go to Spain, even today, you'll see, statues or memorials of Hercules there. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed that. I will note one last thing before we leave. So here he set up columns or pillars. In some versions of this myth, he either cuts the strait open to allow trade out into the ocean. So he sort of digs a channel there for boats to go out into the ocean. And in others, the big giant sea monsters were coming in there, so he actually builds the land closer together. So he's not making pillars, but he's actually making land masses, right? He's filling in so much extra land that's what the so-called columns or pillars are, is the land of the peninsulae that stretch out to reach towards each other there. And in that version of the myth, he's doing that to keep the giant sea monsters from coming into the Mediterranean. So there's a lot of different versions of the story of the Pillars of Hercules here. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed that. Valete omnes.